Ernest, so that you don't speak.
Your Excellency, the right permit me, Your Excellency, to hand over to Mr. Chris.
The Edo Regional Development Plan and the 2050 Economic Development of Things. Can we have this slide up, please? Really come to fruition and are sustained over time. So we'll be looking at the resource requirements and the internal and external stakeholders, what roles, responsibilities do they have to play with, the enablers and possible risk that could constitute showstoppers to our desired structure for the day. A schedule we intend to follow so we can achieve the objectives for. Next, we're going to be inviting His Excellency to give us an opening address. And then we go into the main, should invite our friends from Siraj Holdings and Siraj Nigeria to speak to us, to present to us on the Benin Urban Master Plan, economic planning, to speak to us about the 2050 Economic Development Plan. Then we shall spend some time, the lessons from the past. What has happened to previous development plans? Why were they successful? Why did they fall into the same pitfalls? And then we'll spend some time talking about the critical resource requirements, enablers, and risk abilities we need to sustain this. Then finally, roles and so we look at the roles of the MDAs and we look at the roles of other critical stakeholders. And then finally, we'll round up with next steps and summary brand roles. One is we encourage very active participations of everyone present here, volunteer information and participate. So seek and clarify issues that are not clear to you. Where you have opportunity to speak, please keep it simple and short. So if you have to make a comment, so that we do not disturb or detract from the presentations we'll be listening to. A few safety brief. We also have an exit, a one-way exit at the back of the hall. We can also exit through that hall in an emergency and go down the stairs and again assemble at the car park, which will be a mustering point. There we account for everybody. And finally, if you're not speaking, we expect you to please wear your mask. And wearing your mask properly is also pretty important. If you're not speaking, please put your mask over your, if we're already infected, some of tips and tricks we can adopt to make. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to please give us the opening address.
Your Excellency, the Deputy, we are gathered here to commence the process of putting together one of what I will describe will be the most significant document that will lead Edo over the next half a century, or a quarter of a century, rather. We are here to start a series of workshops that will lead to the creation of a Benin City master plan, an Edo State regional plan, and an Edo State economic development plan, 30-year economic development plan. If you recall during the elections, I made it very, very clear that one of the legacies of our administration will be to leave behind a compass, like a directional tool, which will indicate where Edo should be going or headed over the next 3 decades. So this is in fulfillment of our electoral promise, and it was a very well thought out idea, because we found out that one of the biggest challenges we have as a country and as a state is we do not plan. We have lost the culture of planning, and we just keep moving on. When you ask, where are we moving to, nobody can tell you with clarity. So when we come to work every day, we just do what we think we are, however the Spirit moves us. And nobody sits back to tie what I, the individual, is doing with what the organization is doing and the state, and what the purpose is all about. Because there's no planning to say, well, this is where we are going, and this is how we need to organize ourselves, pull our resources to get to where we are going. And this is how my own contribution helps get to that process. Everybody comes with ideas. We politicians go, we make promises, talk about everything. But how do you implement? How do you do those things that you want to do? So this exercise is supposed to be the first step in that direction. Why is this important for us? As an administration, one of the biggest concerns that people keep expressing is that they say, Mr. Governor, you, your deputy, and your administration, you are doing well. You are charting a new direction. What is the guarantee that when you leave, these things will continue? That's the concern of most people. Who is the person that will come and take over and ensure that it continues? And my response is that we may not find that person, but we can create that system that will ensure that what we have started continues. And by introducing and commencing this planning process, what we are doing is creating that system and to say, this is the compass, this is where we are going, and this is why we are going in this direction, and this is how we will get there, and this is what every person will have to do, will have to contribute in their own way that can be measured over time for us to get to where we are going. 30 years is not a long time. 1999 to date is already 22 years. So 30 years is not a long time. It will come just like that. So today, I think we're making a very first we're making a first small step in the direction that we want to go. I will be the last to tell you that it's going to be easy. No. But from our experience, from the experiences of people who have done it right, if we do it properly, then no matter the vagaries, no matter the challenges ahead of us, at least we will have the clarity, hopefully, to go through it. The last point I want to make is that from my experience in government, I've been involved with the Edo State government closely for more than 14 years now. And one of the biggest banes, challenges we face is waste. It is not that we do not have the resources. At least what we have is enough to start. But most of our resources are wasted because we don't have a plan. If you just look at the MDAs, and Greenfield has been doing some work for us, about 6 to 7 MDAs doing the same things because they're not talking to each other. They are not sad to say, okay, this is where we are going and this is how each person will participate in getting to that objective. So with a plan that is well articulated, where everybody participates, you will understand, everybody will know that this thing I'm doing, this is where we're going, and this is my own role. Therefore, let me not duplicate. Yesterday, I went into the presidential lodge with one of our contractors. I decided not to leave there because I just don't feel it is safe. And I almost wept. I mean, this is where governors have lived for the last almost 20 years. And you could just tell. One person comes, does this, you could see wires, the air conditioning, the air conditioning was just a disaster. the electricity connections, a disaster. And you just sitting back reflecting and say, well, this typifies where we're coming from. That even where the governor lives, over time, different people have come to do different things in that building. That the building does not make any sense again today. It's a hazard to live in. And that typifies the situation we are in today. And everybody, all of us, are now trading blames. Oh, it is you, it's not you. But that should not be the issue. The issue for us is like, okay, we thank God we're where we are. The world has changed on us. We're now experiencing a new phenomenon as a la COVID. How do we now organize ourselves to survive? How do we organize ourselves to be great again? It's not difficult. By doing what we're doing, by starting this exercise today, I can assure you that if we do it right, within the next 10 years, Edo will be the state to beat. I want to welcome you and say I will be here. It's our project. It is not the governor's project. It's not Shiraz's project. It is our project. And when the consultants came, I said to them very clearly, because I told them that I wanted to start this week. I said, you are not to come and give us a plan. That is not what we're paying for. You are here to sit with us and help us and direct us to create our plan. Because we are going to leave that plan. Our children are going to inherit the plan. So we must be the ones to design the plan ourselves. And the plan is not just a document that we all keep and say, yes, we have. No, it's a process that we live. This is the new way we're going to live. So having very robust presentations and discussions, and we want to, at this level, hear from you. This is going to be a series of workshops. We're going to workshop with us at the state level, the local government levels, the major institutions, the chieftaincy institutions, the non-governmental institutions, children, schools. We are going to workshop with everybody because everybody must have a say in the where we're going. We are create a compass that will lead us to where we want to get to. On that note, I want to welcome all of you and wish us all a happy workshop.
Thank you very much. Please take the floor. Dr. Kamal, please.
Name is Kamal Azar. Do I have the pointer or you'll use it? Okay. Let me just speak a little bit about this type of presentation that we're doing. It's not a presentation, it's the master plan for the city of Benin and for the Edo State, rather than me giving the presentation all the time alone, okay? That means we're going to do today. So I will start first by saying who we are and what are we trying to do. I'll just briefly speak what is city planning or what is city, one that we intend to do for the Edo State. And then we're going to talk about lesson learned and how our approach is different from the typical approaches for developing these plans. And then we're going to talk about the expected MDA's involvement and contribution to these plans. And then we'll have some concrete remarks. Who are we? I'm the MD of Siraj Holding. Siraj Holding has several companies underneath it. One of them is Siraj. Siraj is the one that will be executing this master plan. GIS Transport, Siraj is headed by Elias, who's sitting here. GIS Transport is the one doing EdoGIS for you, so you already know who GIS Transport is. The project manager, Stephen, is also sitting with us. We have a company that does aerial photography. We have a plane and a camera sitting in Abuja, so Aeroprecisa is the one that flew the city of Benin 3 years ago, and the urban areas. And we have one more company that didn't do any work in Benin. It's called KSA Electric. We do electric work from all type, from design to construction of electric, from street lighting to whatever. Anyway, so Siraj is the company that will be involved mainly in this master plan. We've been registered in operation in Nigeria since 1992, so next year we're going to we'll have 30 years celebration. And our area of expertise are in civil engineering, in transportation, master planning, environmental. Holding also owns the same set of companies in East Africa and Uganda. I have all these companies. Our head office is in Beirut, and we have also offices for all these companies in Iraq. So we are trying to cover the Middle East and West Africa. Talk about master planning. What is master planning? Why are we all here? What are we trying to do? What is a master plan? And I will start with some definitions, and it's key to mention these definitions at the beginning so that we understand what we're trying to do. If you see, the first definition says, a master plan is a dynamic, long-term planning document that provides conceptual layout to guide future growth and development. I'd like to emphasize the term dynamic. A master plan is not static, it's dynamic. This is something very important. When we do a master plan, we try to come up with some ideas for the future or the vision that we have for a city, and what we set is not cast in concrete, because things change, developments happen, technology is changing, so people should be ready to be able to modify this master plan with the changes that occur around us. So one should be ready for the, it's hitting me, I hope it doesn't bother anyone here, so I turned off the AC. So we should be ready to have a master plan that is dynamic, that is subject to change, that is subject to improvement with time. And this is the approach that we want to use. When we do the master plan, we are trying to create the environment that will allow people who are involved in the master plan to keep on updating it and modify it with time. It's not something that is rigid, that nobody has to change from it, because it's made to be changed, okay? A master plan is an overarching planning document and spatial layout which is used to structure land use and development. This is one narrow way of looking at it. Some people see a master plan for a city, it is the land use regulations that I have and the type of development that I want. This is true, but this is not the only element of a master plan. It is true that it will structure for me the land use, it will structure for me the type of development that I forecast for my city or for my state. However, it has more than that function. Not only the expansion of residential areas and urban sprawl, but urban planning also ensures good transportation, healthcare, urban design, sustainable development by means of a master plan. Meaning that when I'm looking at land use, I have to also look at transportation, because land use and transportation, they go hand in hand. If I have a suggested or a proposed land, proper infrastructure to support it, meaning that if I'm putting high residential areas, I need to have streets that can accommodate the densities of people that I'm putting. I need to have the water system that can support providing water for everyone. I need to have electricity that can carry the load of people that I have there. So it is not just putting the land use and the development, but I also have to provide the adequate infrastructure that can support that, okay? So the city will grow rapidly without having negative impacts on its built environment, economy, and citizens. So if I want a city to grow, I want to make sure that the city will grow in a healthy way, so that I have the supporting infrastructure in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of transportation, mobility, and all the infrastructure that will make the life of the citizens more suitable. On the other hand, we are trying to do also a regional development plan. If you look at the definition of a regional development plan, regional development planning is undertaken by governments with the aim of improving the well-being of people in areas where there is concern about present and future living conditions. So, if we're looking at Edo State, we know that Benin is the center or the capital of the state. However, we're looking at the cities that are outside and the villages, and we are concerned about the health and the living condition of people in those areas. And we're trying to maintain a certain standard of living for these people in those areas. So we want to make sure that all our LGAs are being well supported. People living there they have a decent life to live, and they don't have the incentive to move out of their areas. So we need to provide them with a standard of living that will make sure that not just the center, but also the peripheries of the state will thrive and will also flourish. Okay, so it's a plan. The program of regional development normally attempts to treat these problems comprehensively. Regional planning also helps in reducing the conflicts and competition for resources between cities or in a region. So when we're developing the whole state, we try to assign roles to different cities in the state. So we don't want competition between cities, because we want to have some kind of synergies between the roles of cities or regions within the state. So the view when we're doing a regional plan is to say what each city is going to be doing, focusing on, while providing necessary services for its citizens. However, what is the role that's going to play in the bigger picture of the state? Okay? So regional planning takes into account the economic, spatial, and environmental goals and tries to address state-level issues. So we're talking about at the state level, how can we make the whole state function properly and play a role within the country. So if we decide that Edo has to become, for instance, the hub for IT, this is one idea, for instance, that His Excellency was thinking about. He wants to train thousands of students to become like the IT or the programming hub for the state. So how can, for Nigeria, so how can we make Edo play that role? What are the infrastructure that we have to give to it? Which city has to play it? So these are the things where we have to look at the whole role that Edo has to play with respect to the whole Nigeria. Now, what we are doing is not something new. We're not the people who are inventing master planning. The state already has done 2 master plans that we were able to identify. Maybe there are more master plans, but we were able to put our hands on 2 so far. There was one done in the 1970 by Paulson. The second was done by Obiawana Associates and Mama Med Consult in 1992. By the way, Paulson, the head of my planning in the Beirut office, Diran, did his while doing his training in London. Outside London. He did it with Paulson, and he was working with them on another Nigerian project. So since then, they were actually involved in lots of projects here in Nigeria. And funny enough, my planner, the chief planner that they have in Beirut, worked with that company in the 70s, also in the UK. Okay. Now, if we look at the existing master plans for the city, I'm going to take the recent one because it has some useful information. The old one has some sketchy information, and the details are not very complete in that one. So if we look at this one, this is one that was done in the 1992 to 1994 for the city of Benin, and this is what they were suggesting for the city of Benin. You could see that this is the urban area that in 1992 was the extent of urbanization that we had in the city of Benin. And they were planning that the development for urban areas are going to grow in a radial way around the city. And they wanted to have some kind of circumferential roads, ring roads around the city, a couple of ring roads, with some radial roads that will lead you out of the city. So this is usually the typical planning, physical planning that planners try to do. You try to do radial roads that take you from the center of the city to the suburbs, and then you have ring roads. This provides the best mobility. If you look at Abuja, you could see that the same set of roads are actually done in Abuja. We have three ring roads around the city, and then from the city there are many radial roads that lead you. So this provides the best mobility for people to drive around. Now, if you take that plan and you superimpose it on the satellite imagery, we could see that we had to stretch it and make it. This shows that back then when they did it, they didn't have actually the technology to use satellite imagery or whatever, so it was done schematically, and the geographic accuracy of what they've done was not 100%, but at least it gives you some idea about what kind of development. But what we see now, we see that if we go to the new image, all these urban areas that they were planning for them to get developed, they were actually developed haphazardly, but none of these radial roads was done. So we had the city growing using the old infrastructure. There was no new infrastructure to support that development, which is actually created a problem. Instead of building it hand in hand, allowing the development to move and to progress, and then providing it with the basic infrastructure, the city failed to provide the infrastructure, and the development was happening by itself. So there was no actually growth that was followed according to the plans. So unfortunately, none of these master plans is being implemented or has been implemented. Benin City is growing and expanding rapidly today without a master plan. So we should say that it is left to the market to decide. People just come and then they build. And then if there is road, okay, they will go and build. And if there is no road, the road will follow. But what kind of road is it? Is it made to support the whole region or just to support that house? This is the issue. So we don't have a comprehensive view. A master plan should give us a comprehensive view, should determine what kind of roads should we do, what kind of development, what are the densities that we're allowed to have, and not just leave it to grow on its own. So if we want to go quickly, you could see the growth of the city of Benin. We were able to dig some images from the 1984. You could see that city of Benin, the urban area of the city of Benin was basically around 132 square kilometers, which is huge for a metropolitan area. But let's see what happened to the city. In 2010, the city grew up to 253 square kilometers. And then in 2018, it went up to 535 square kilometers. So if we just why does it do to? If we look at the growth of the city, we could see that from 1984 to 210, the growth was 3.5% yearly. So it was growing in terms of size. We're talking about size. We're not talking about population, but we assume population and size, they go hand in hand in here. Okay, because we have unique densities usually. We don't have too many high rises. If you look between 210 and 218, during the last 10 years, the growth is 14%. The city is growing at a very high rate. It's expanding to the suburbs at a very fast rate. So between 1984 and 2010, it doubled. So it took it actually almost 30 years to double, but within 8 years it doubled between 2010 and 2018. So this is more or less an exponential growth. And if we continue at this curve, the city is going to go into a huge size, and this is why we need to do something now. Otherwise, it will become a huge failure to keep it growing without any constraints or any guidance for the growth. So, what are we proposing ourselves? What I'm trying to say here is we are going to talk about our approach. How are we going to do the master plan for the city of Benin, and then how are we going to do the master plan for the development plan for the whole state of Edo State. So how are we going to do the planning? Considering that planning is a continuous process. I mentioned it's dynamic, it's continuous. The master plan will not be seen as an end by itself. As His Excellency mentioned, we're not just doing it to have a document at the end. We say, look, we have a document for you. It's a process that we have to put our heads together to be able to develop the vision that we see for the city of Benin. How do we want the city to look like in the future? What is the role that the city of Benin has to play in Edo and in the whole state and maybe in the area? But as a guide, so we don't see it, considering that planning is continuous process, the master plan will not be seen as an end by itself, but as a guide to a process, a framework for dialogue, review, implementation, action, monitoring, and adjustment. So it's a framework for dialogue. We want everybody to be involved. We want all this, the MDAs, the ministries, the local governments, everybody to be involved in this so that we are all working together. And it is a critical factor for the success of any master plan. If we don't have all the stakeholders involved in it and all the stakeholders creating this kind of dialogue so that we could try to find create the vision and later on the strategy to meet that vision, the master plan would fail. So the work plan envisaged consists of 3 phases preceded by an initiation phase. So we're talking about the phases that we will be doing. We'll start with the initiation phase, analysis, setting objectives for sustainable development, and then the synthesis of the plan from development to strategy policies. So the first stage is the initiation stage. First, obviously, we have to mobilize and do the fast scoping. We've been on and off coming and discussing. I mean, this is something that's been evolving over a year now. So we started this kind of mobilization and the fast scoping. We had many discussions. So this is something that we have to actually further develop. And then we do a review and clear definition of the aims and development objectives. And we have to establish these development objectives from all the public sector and the authorities. So we are trying to see what you want to develop. What is the vision that we want to create? So here we have to review and create a clear definition of the aim and the development objectives. And then we do an overview obtained of all social and economic sectors, which will serve as the basis for preparation of the inception report. When we look at a city, we try to evaluate it from all its social and economic sectors, meaning that we have to see what is the transportation sector, what does it look like, what is the condition of that transportation sector. We have to look at the telecom sector, we have to look at the power sector, we have to look at education, we have to look at health, we have to look at sanitation, we have to look at waste disposal, we have to look at all these sectors, the infrastructure in the city. Are they functioning well? Are they properly working together? What do we need to make some kind of a